never believed in the supernatural, let alone ghost stories. Growing up, I was the type who needed concrete evidence to believe in anything. But my experience at Whispering Pines changed all that. This isn't just another campfire story, it's a warning. If you ever hear about Whispering Pines, please stay away. Here's my story. It all started with a road trip. My friends and I had just graduated college and wanted one last adventure before settling into our new lives. The plan was simple. Drive through the backroads of New England, explore small towns, and camp under the stars. There were 5 of us. Jake, the planner, Sarah, the skeptic, like me, Mike, the jokester, Liz, who loved all things spooky, and me, Alex. We had been on the road for about a week when we stumbled upon Whispering Pines. We were running low on gas and our GPS showed a small dot on the map that indicated a town nearby. The road leading to it was overgrown and barely visible, but curiosity got the better of us. As we drove down the narrow winding road, we noticed the air getting colder, and an unsettling feeling crept over us. Whispering Pines wasn't on any of our maps or apps. It was as if the place didn't exist. Yet, here it was, nestled deep in the forest. The town was eerily quiet, with old dilapidated buildings and streets overrun with weeds. There were no signs of life, no cars, no people, just silence. We found a small gas station remarkably well preserved compared to the rest of the town, and Jake filled the tank while the rest of us explored. "Look at this place," Liz said, snapping pictures. "It's like a ghost town." Probably just abandoned," Sarah replied, though she didn't sound convinced. We wandered around checking out the crumbling buildings. The town had a strange charm, frozen in time. An old diner, a general store, and a few houses, all emptied, yet filled with an oppressive atmosphere that made the hairs in the back of my neck stand up. As the sun began to set, we decided to find a place to camp for the night, just outside of town. We found a clearing with an old rusty sign that said Whispering Pines Campground. The place looked like it hadn't been used in decades, but it had a fire pit and a few rotting picnic tables, and we weren't about to go and camp inside of one of the dilapidated houses anyway. "This is perfect," Jake said, unloading the gear. "We'll make a fire, roast some marshmallows, and have a great night." We set up our tents and got the fire going. The flickering flames provided a small comfort against the growing darkness. We told stories, laughed, and tried to shake off the eerie feeling that clung to the town. As the night wore on, Liz suggested we explored the woods. "I read somewhere that abandoned places like this often have cool stuff hidden in the forest. Who's in?" Despite our reservations, we all agreed. Armed with flashlights and a sense of adventure, we ventured into the trees. The forest was thick, and the further we went in, the quieter it became. The only sounds were our footsteps and the occasional rustling of leaves. After about an hour of wandering, we came across an old decrepit cabin. It looked like it had been abandoned for years, with broken windows and a sagging roof. Naturally, we decided to investigate. The inside was even creepier. Dust-covered furniture, cobwebs in every corner, and an overwhelming sense of dread. On a table in the center of the room, we found a journal. Though the leather cover was cracked and worn, and the pages were aged rather terribly. "Check this out," Mike said, flipping through the pages. "It's a diary or something." We gathered around as he read aloud. The entries were written by someone named Eliza, who had lived in the town years ago. Her writings spoke of strange happenings, people disappearing, voices in the night, and a sense of being watched. As we read, a feeling of unease settled over us. The last entry was the most disturbing. August 13th, 1952. The voices are louder now, whispering my name. I see shadows moving in the trees, watching and waiting. Last night I heard them outside the cabin. I fear I am not alone. If anyone finds this, beware of the woods. They are not what they seem. That's enough, Sarah said, her voice shaking. Let's get out of here. We agreed and hurried back to the campsite. The oppressive feeling followed us. The fire had died down and we quickly rekindled it, seeking its warmth and light. As we sat around the fire trying to shake off the fear, we heard it. A faint whispering carried on the wind. It was so soft at first. We thought it was our imagination, but it grew louder, more insistent until we could make out the words. Leave this place. We looked at each other, eyes wide with terror. Did you hear that? Jake asked, his voice barely a whisper. Before we could respond, the whispering grew louder, coming from all directions. Shadows danced at the edge of the firelight and the air grew colder. Panic set in and we scrambled to pack our things. We need to go, now, Liz said, her voice trembling. We hurriedly packed up, but as we did, the whispering turned into screams. Agonized, blood-curdling screams that echoed through the trees. We ran to the car, the sound chasing us. The engine roared to life and we sped down the narrow road, not daring to look back. As we left Whispering Pines, the air grew warmer and the screaming faded into the distance. We drove in silence, each of us processing what had happened. No one spoke until we were miles away, back on the main road. What the hell was that? Mike finally asked, breaking the silence. Ghosts? Spirits? I don't know, Jake replied, his voice shaky. But we're never going back. Got it? We made it back home, but none of us were the same. The experience has left its mark, and we have all struggled to move on. I did some research trying to find any information about Whispering Pines, but there were no records of the town ever, existing. Not on any map, at least, not on any records. No maps, no history. No proof. It's been years since that night, but I still hear the whispers sometimes, especially when I'm alone. I've tried to forget, but it's impossible. The memory is burned into my mind, a constant reminder about what we encountered. So if you ever find yourself on a road trip through New England and you see a sign for Whispering Pines, turn around. Do not enter the town. Some places are meant to be forgotten, left to the shadows and the whispers, and remember, curiosity can be deadly. Stay away from Whispering Pines.